live, episode 20 of the Broadway Shuffle, a Texas Tech sports podcast with Conrad, Clayton, and Zyler. I am Brennan. And guys, coming off a tough loss this weekend in Fort Worth against TCU, 35-34, the Red Raiders get defeated by the Horned Frogs. Back-to-back losses in the Big 12. Tough way to go out for the road team. And we just want to get right into it. Conrad, you were at the game. I just want to get all of y'all's initial thoughts on the loss. We've heard a lot from people in tech media, from fans, from family. We've been texting since 4 a.m. It just feels like this loss was a tough one to get over. But just initial reaction to the loss, Conrad, and maybe even describe your experience at the game a little bit. But how are you feeling coming off Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, extremely disappointed in the team, extremely disappointed in the offense, defense, special teams. It's not an easy one to swallow, especially losing back-to-back weeks to Baylor and TCU, especially the way you lost to both teams, losing to one by allowing 59 points, losing to another being up 17 in the second half, and then seemingly letting that slip away. I did have the pleasure of going to the game, and I will say I'm just not impressed with the school, with the fan base, with anything that bears the name TCU. The fans were pretty obnoxious, to be completely honest with you, and probably the most annoying thing to me was the fact that they have their scoreboard cranked up to a level that shouldn't even be allowed, because their fans can't make enough noise because there aren't enough of them in the stadium to make noise. So they have to manufacture noise through a sound system that is very good, but it's unbelievably loud. It's distracting. But I guess that's what you do when you have a fan base that doesn't even stay past halftime and can't even fill the stadium in the first half. I would say it was probably about 30% Tech people there, maybe 35%. So really disappointing. It was unbelievably hot too, which the weather didn't show that, but wasn't fun to be there necessarily, especially the way it ended. I thought it was going to be, but we all know how that changed very, very quickly.
Yeah, Z, well, I want to preface before you go, if Zyler, he is one of the most pessimistic guys before the game, and yet when we lose, Z, it's like I'm convinced we're going to win the next weekend every time I hear things come out of your mouth after the game. What is your initial reaction, and how, I guess, is the pessimism still there, or are you actually feeling more optimistic after you go in and almost get a road win at TCU?
Yeah, I mean, I think that result is clearly frustrating given where you were. I don't know that if you looked at any of those stats, many of them, and you just told me a bunch of them, that I would think you were going to win the game. Some of the things that TCU got, I thought, truth be told, they played a better game than you in a lot of areas. So it doesn't necessarily surprise me that you lost. I think you would have been fortunate to win that game based on where certain things broke down. I think your average starting field position was at the 50. Theirs was at their own 18. So a lot of that stuff, really played in your favor from a fortune standpoint. I'm not necessarily too down on this team. They are kind of who they thought they were. I thought they were. I thought they'd win 7 games this year, and you still have 4 opportunities left to do that. Frustrating, definitely, to lose to the 2 Big 12 Texas schools that you really care about, and you won't play either of them again until 2026. That's really frustrating. But I'm not super down on the program. I think we're still in a great spot moving forward. I believe in Joey. I believe in like 75% of the coordinators, some of them more than others. But yeah, it's a loss on the road at a Big 12 team that's more talented than you by 1 point. That's not going to get me super fired up, generally speaking.
This is why I love Z too, because you see everything else on Texas Tech fandom, whether it's Red Raider Sports or Tech Twitter or whatever, and it's like, fire this guy, get this guy. And maybe there's some of us on the show that feel that way, and we'll get into it. But Zyler brings a calming presence to the nation of Texas Tech. So Z, thank you for your contribution. It makes me feel better. My anxiety goes down when I listen to you spew optimism about our football team. Clayton, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what I was saying about it's hard to get mad losing a game by 1 to a team that's probably more talented than you right now with the injuries that you have. But whenever you lead by 17 in the second half, it's it's so devastating to lose a game like that. I feel like I'm easily more mad about this game than I was about the Baylor game when we got blown out, and I picked us to lose by double digits. So I feel like it should have softened the blow, but I'm still upset And there's obviously plenty of blame to go around for a 17-point blown lead, but I'm sure we'll get into that in a second.
Yeah, I think all of us will get to our predictions, but all of us actually, that's not true. Conrad, you picked Texas Tech to win, but Zyler, Clayton, and I picked Texas Tech to lose. But we picked us to lose by double digits. You had to, yeah. You were on the field before talking smack. You had to pick us to win. But if Tech would have lost by 15, 17, like if the 14-3 would have become 27-10, 34-21 on TCU's end, I wouldn't have been disappointed. I would have been like, you just went on the road and lost. Same story. It's how you lost this game that I think has fans frustrated, because this was a game that you should have won and you didn't. And so that's what we're here to get into. And we'll just go right to what I thought were the two biggest coaching decisions in the game. Clayton, me and you were watching the game together, and we were arguing right away that you should be going forward on 4th and 2, inside your own 10-yard line, try to get a 17-point lead. Zyler, I'll go to you first. What were your thoughts? Should Texas Tech have gone for it on 4th and 2, or did you like the field goal play there?
Yeah, I wanted to get back and look at what that final play. So it was 4th and 3. Man, I thought it was 4th and 1. I didn't ever see the actual down and distance because I was arguing with my mom about what we should be doing there, so I didn't actually look. I thought it was 4th and 1, and I thought that was a terrible call. If it was 4th and 1, 4th and 3, I guess is a little more understandable, but I still think the numbers would tell you should go for that. Anybody that doesn't understand that, it's like the downside is let's say you don't convert, they still have to score 2 touchdowns to beat you. The only downside is that now they can score a touchdown and a field goal to tie you. If you go up 13 points, 2 touchdowns still beats you. Are you really that worried about them getting a touchdown and then kicking 2 field goals, like having 3 possessions? The only real benefit is that you could go down and win the game. If they score 2 touchdowns, you can kick a field goal to win it. I don't know that that's adding expected win probability. I thought that was a poor decision. That's just me, though, but that decision frustrated me probably the most of any of the decisions we made in the game.
Well, Conrad, you would think that running the ball on 3rd and long is setting you up to go forward on 4th down. A lot of teams, they mainly run the ball on 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 to get 5 or 6 yards to set up a manageable 4th down call. It just, not only did it feel unlike Joey, it also felt like, why run the ball on 3rd and 10 then if you're going to settle for a 4th and 3 field goal?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I mean, as soon as Hammond turned around, handed that ball off, I thought, oh, okay, this is good because they may not have been expecting that, and you did get a good chunk of yards there. So I thought at that point you were gonna go for it on 4th down, and when you didn't, it was shocking because sure, it was unlike Joey, but we've seen him back off maybe some of the going for it on 4th down this year, which that's a totally different conversation. But was extremely disappointed in that because I don't think I'm ever going to be mad at a coach and a team playing to win. I will say I do get frustrated at a team playing not to lose, which is, I think that's what we did in that situation. And so I would have liked to see us go for it for the reasons that Zyler said. And even at that point, though, you go up 34-21 with that made 24-yard field goal, 25-yard field goal by Geno. I thought at that point, I said, okay, that's still, you're still up by a good amount, but obviously looking back, you have some serious questions about why did you not just go for it? You could have easily gotten that. Now Tahj may have gotten stopped, but Kitley should have had some gadget play in his bag to, make sure that we could pick up that 4th down, but that's neither here nor there. I didn't like the call at all. Didn't feel like it was what you should have done, but it wasn't worse in my opinion than the 3rd and 7 call with Hammond, which we'll get into in a second. That was much worse in my opinion than the 4th and 3.
Yeah, we'll get there. Clayton, we were at a watch party watching the game. About half of us were like, kick it. You were adamant, and you kept saying the rest of the game, you should have gone for it on 4th and 3. You should have gone for it on 4th and 3. What is your reasoning behind that? And I agree with you, but explain to our listeners why you were so adamant in that situation, maybe from an analytical perspective too.
Yeah, Zyler hit the analytical part. Like, the difference in going from a 2-score lead to a 3-score lead is much different than going from a 10-point game to a 13-point game. And I completely agree about, if we're not going to go for it on 4th down, then we should have, I think it was 3rd and 7. We should throw it on 3rd and 7. Like, I know Tahj picks up those first downs a lot on 3rd and longs, but I definitely thought when I saw us run it, I agree that I thought we were setting up the fourth down play. And another aspect is we were on like the 6 or 7 yard line. So if you don't get it, they have 95 yards to go to score. So like I'd much rather.
And then you get the ball back and you're still up a possession.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd much rather be up 10 with them having the ball at their own 5 than be up 13 and them have the ball at their 25.
Yeah, there was 6 minutes left, I guess. Or how much time was left? No, 11 minutes left. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I mean, I think the not going for it on fourth down was far worse than the 3rd and 7 Will Hammond draw play, in my opinion.
All right. Well, that's a perfect segue. Unless any final thoughts on the 4th and 2, I think to get to a psychological level on this really quickly with Joey Maguire is, I think back to the Texas game in 2022 at home. And it was like, if it was 4th and 6 or less, almost no matter where you were on the field, Joey was like, we're going for it. I don't care. And that's how he played. And it worked out that season. Well, it seems like this season they've moved away from some of that. Let's just feel this out and go and stay aggressive. And it's almost like cost your team in some situations.
Which I hate. That's bad process.
I agree. I completely agree. That's bad coaching. Go ahead, Clay.
I wasn't on. Sorry, go ahead, Zyler.
No,
I was about to say, I wasn't on the show after the Arizona game to discuss this with y'all, but there was a 4th down call in that game where it was 4th and 1 on like our own 38 or something. And we punted and then we won the game. And I feel like everyone's like, oh, well, he made the right call. The only reason that was the right call is because they missed the field goal on the next possession. They should have gone for it on that one too. And I feel like Joey has flipped all the way to the other side of the spectrum.
You're exactly right. Process. I think people fail to understand that like you can make an outcome that 70% of the time it works. That still means 30% of the time it fails. You should still make that decision every single time, even if it fails back to back time. Like good process will over the long run yield you better results. Yeah. And I think Joey's gotten away from that because of admittedly some very stupid criticism from some people in our fan base who don't like positive win probability decisions because they don't always work. You're not Alabama where you're trying to minimize the amount of variability in a game. You're a team that's trying to maximize variability in a lot of situations. And I'm really frustrated that, and we talked about this. I forget what game it was. Was it after Washington State where he was talking about like, yeah, we're going to look at some of that stuff and just kind of feel it out a little bit more. I wanted to watch the game on TV to kind of get a feel for the vibe. That is not how you should make decisions. If you start watching the game and making decisions like a fan, you will end up being a fan. That is not how you should be making those decisions. And Joey, for his whole career, has typically made good decisions. That's the thing that's frustrating about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think people, too, are looking at this, and it's like, okay, your defense gave up massive chunk yard touchdowns. So you're not even up 13, like you guys talked about. They're probably going to score 2 touchdowns. Do you trust your offense to go get 6 yards, or even on 4th and 3, you could have got a first down, or trust your defense to give up, less than 14 points? But if you would have got that and got 38-21, the game's over. There's just not enough time for 3 possessions. And so that's what drives me nuts. It's like almost not even understanding your team. Like you're not going to get enough stops. The defense, in my opinion, did what they had to do to win the game. Now, it wasn't pretty. They gave up a ton of chunk plays, but they forced 3 turnovers. They had a turnover within the 5-yard line that you still couldn't go score. You had to have a Reese Burkhardt, flip-a-roo, whatever that play is called, to, get a rushing touchdown from your kicker on a fake field goal. It's just like the defense to me did enough, but you can't still trust them to go how they played against Arizona was an anomaly. And so it's just hard. It's a frustrating decision. And it's like, man, why do we keep doing this? Like, this is a Texas Tech theme. It happens every year. And we know the whole fan base, all of us were sitting there going 34-21. You shouldn't have kicked. And they score within, it felt like 10 seconds. And then we're like, crap, we're going to lose this game. We all knew it.
Yeah.
We've seen the story. We're the most insane fan base. It's like we're expecting a different result, and it keeps happening over and over and over and over again. And we're expecting something different, and it never changes. No. So let's go to 3rd and 7. We have some disagreements here for sure. You guys, Zyler texted us in our group chat during the game. I didn't hate the call. Z, explain that process, and then Conrad, I'll go to you because I know you thought I know you think differently. But Z, I'll let you go first.
Okay, two things. I hate the decision to not try to go get a first down. If your decision, which I think was wrong, to play it safe and kick a field goal, I don't hate that call. Center it up, do what you need to do. Is it perfect? No. Maybe you should hit it. Whatever. That's you're not fine. That didn't necessarily bother me. The worst part of that decision was choosing to not try to get the first down, because that wasn't going to be a game-winning field goal. You're not going to be able to milk the clock. That team's going to still have a minute 40 to go down and kick a field goal to win. I thought that was equally as bad of a decision to not go for it down in the red zone. That was much more frustrating to me. And then Will spinning in the pocket spinning in the tackle box. That is almost rule number 1 of being a runner, is never do that because you will fumble. That was the second worst decision. The third worst was that play call. Of the 3 things that happened there, the technical play call was the least of my concerns, if the objective was not to get a first down and center it up for a kick. So that's my caveat.
Which doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If Kitley was told, hey, I want you to center this up, I want to kick a field goal here, I don't want to put my true freshman in a situation where he needs to throw the ball down the field, and Kitley is, okay, well, I guess we'll do this, that doesn't necessarily bother me as much. I think the thing that does bother me is you chose to play it conservatively there and not try to go for the win. That bothers me more than anything.
Yeah, but Conrad, as I'm coming to you, but that's the question that confuses me. It's like, if you don't trust your quarterback, who at that point was 10 of 12, or for the 125 yards and a tutty, to not throw an 8-yard back shoulder throw to Douglas, for instance, on the corner to try to pick up a first down. Why are you trusting him to run the football? Like, if the precedent is we don't trust Will in the situation, you're still giving the ball to Will. I don't get it. Conrad?
Yeah, so I'll go back to what I said when I was talking earlier. I thought that this call was worse than the 4th and 3 call because of the result and what happened, and because of what you did. It seemed like it compounded, because my thought was what you did on 4th and 3 and what you did on 3rd and 7 were both playing not to lose the game and not to win the game, as Zyler just alluded to. And that was my problem. And not only did the result make me infuriated, I walked right out right after that, walked right down the elevator and walked right to my car, because it was so infuriating to see what happened, because I don't understand. And I would guess that would be a head coach decision of, we're not going to go for this. We're going to play conservative and put it on the leg of our kicker, which I hate, putting things on the leg of a kicker. They're not even football players. That's a hot take, but I stand by that. They just kick the ball. And so that's why I hated that call so much, is because of what happened, but also because if you're going to make that call, okay, let's just hypothetically say this. You're going to make that call. Whatever. I think it's wrong. But if you're going to try and get a field goal, do you give it to Jacoby Williams? Do you give it to Tahj Brooks? Do you give it to even Jalen Conyers if you really want to go that far deep? Or do you give it to your 190-pound soaking wet true freshman quarterback? That did not make sense to me. I love Will Hammond. We'll talk about this later. I think he played fantastic. I'm not necessarily mad at him for that, because I think the play call was just so obscenely terrible that you put him in a terrible position. And now he did spin in the tackle box, which is not great, but that's why I found it so problematic, is because I felt like you were playing not to lose. You were putting the game on the foot of a kicker, kind of, even though they would have had so much time. And then because of the result of the play, I just thought it was just a triple crown of what could go wrong and what could be terrible for your offense in that situation.
Clay?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I hated the decision not to try to pick up one first down. If you get one first down, that's pretty much game. That's an easy field goal, and you milk the clock. Yeah. So I hate the decision to just play conservatively. As far as the 3rd and 7 play call, I feel like what Kitley was thinking was, we had already run it twice. We weren't going to put the ball in the air on 3rd down, especially with the freshman quarterback. He probably expected TCU to be king on Tahj and did not want to lose yards for the field goal. Thinks, I'll just give it to the QB. We can at least get back to the line of scrimmage, if not pick up 2 or 3 yards. And so I don't really hate that. Kitley making a bad play call is not a reason to fumble, to spin back and then lose the ball. But yeah, I mean, I absolutely, I did not like the decision, especially with the way that Hammond was playing up to that point, almost perfect football, and the way your defense has played in this game and has played in previous games, especially with the tendency to give up huge chunk plays. Like, had you even kept the ball and made that field goal, we probably still lose that game. They have a minute and a half, and they just need to get like 40 yards.
Yep.
And then I guess the last thing I'll say is like when it is 3rd and 7, I think in college the tendency to try to get the other team to burn their timeout is extremely overrated because the clock stops at every first down anyway. Like, I don't think having a timeout on offense is a huge advantage for that drive. I would rather just throw it, and if the clock stops, the clock stops.
Yeah, I would rather see it to go to Clayton's point about the defense keying on Tahj, and and maybe that's what they were thinking. I would still rather take the chance of giving it to Tahj and him losing 2 to 3 yards than fumbling the ball, which would be more likely to happen with Hammond 10 times out of 10 than Tahj. And so that comes where my frustration was, is if you're going to do it, at least give it to the guy who doesn't fumble, minus Arizona.
Yeah, I want to be clear.
I think that's totally reasonable. I think that is reasonable.
Yeah.
That's a perfectly rational take.
If you're going to make the call, again, I'm not saying I would have made the call. I'm just saying if you're going to make the call, who do I want carrying the ball? Hammond or Tahj?
So here's the thing. This doesn't make sense to me. It's like Maguire's going to play that so conservatively, but also I'm going to do a fake field goal on the 4-yard line. Like, that's just not the theme and the schematic of like aggressively playing to win. That was playing to win. That is playing to get an extra 4 points. And then you did stuff that just didn't make sense. And I don't know, that just doesn't fit with what he's done. And I'm worried he's kind of second guessing himself. And that's just frustrating.
Well, I think he is. And I think that's the problem that we're seeing now. It's okay, 4th and 3, 4th and 2.5 kick. Now you're saying, okay, with a minute and 30 seconds left, I trust Gino, because I'm assuming that's who's going out there, to make a 45-yarder. But then I'm still going to leave enough time for the offense that has been cooking your defense, that is extremely vulnerable, to go get a stop. Like, even let's assume Will doesn't fumble, they hand it to Tahj, it's 4th and 3, Gino makes the kick. There's still a minute and 20 seconds left, and all they need is a field goal to win, because they have the one timeout.
4-down territory.
And they're in 4-down territory. So it's like, you're even thinking 2 steps ahead of that. Why? Like, I do not understand the coaching decision. To the point on the play, I completely agree. Give it to a guy that's been in the situation. At the end of the day, you can say Will shouldn't have turned inside. He's 18 years old. He's a freshman quarterback on the road in a situation he's never been in, and he was playing lights out. If you're trusting, okay, let's do a risk assessment here of what could happen if we run the ball with Will, who's never been in that situation. Oh, okay, he gets decked by a 320-pound dude, loses the ball. Run a jet sweep. If you want to center the ball, do it in a more sexy way. I just don't understand the play call and the conservative side of it either. Like, in college football, the chance of getting a holding penalty on the outside in one-on-one coverage is probably 50-50. And Caleb Douglas had been completely cooking their cornerbacks all day. You're not trusting Josh Kelly or Caleb Douglas on an out throw that Will had shown previously that he was capable of making. I just don't get it. It's
on first or second down too. Like, you don't have to wait till 3rd down. On first or second.
Yeah, it's this stuff that I'm like, I watch other teams play, and you see blunders. Like, you see kids. These are kids. They make mistakes, but great programs put their kids in position to succeed more often than not. They take advantage of mismatches, and they make sure their kids don't make a mistake. And I feel like Tech put their players in a position to make a mistake on that 3rd and 7 call, and that's the problem. Sure, Will could have held on to the ball. He should not have had the football.
Yeah, no, I agree. I didn't like the call. I thought it was a bad call, but a lot of the fans insinuating that Kitley should be fired for that one call seems ludicrous to me. And also to put 100% of the blame on Kitley and not at least some on Hammond. I know he's a freshman, but he's played football before. Like, ball security is the number one thing. So, I mean, that's my thing. I didn't like the call, but I don't think that Kitley should be fired.
How many
for that.
times has Will Hammond practiced that play? I don't know. But like in
Less
that
than
situation,
5.
you know, like how many times?
Oh, it's way more than 5.
Wait,
You think so?
Yeah.
Yes.
But my point is, like, you've had Tahj, who's played 40 college games. You've had Will, who's played in 2. If you're gonna run to kick a field goal, give it to the guy that you've trusted in your program for 4 years that you want to give a record to. I just don't get it. Someone explain it to me. Zyler, analytically mind.
Yeah.
Like,
so one thing I'll say, judging coordinators on their play calling in very high leverage situations when you have the benefit of hindsight is always going to be a flawed. We can always say, dude, why didn't you run the good play? Like, run the touchdown play. I need to tell him that before he calls the play. If I want to actually have any valuable insight, like, it's very easy to critique things after they happen. DCs are going to be calling their best plays on 3rd and 7 and things like that. Like, those guys get paid millions of dollars too. They've got 11 scholarship players on the field, just like you do. They're going to make plays. So stuff like that happens. It's a high leverage play and the worst possible outcome occurred. That's a huge bummer. He's going to have to answer for it. I'm not putting too much stock into one of 80 play calls that we had for the game. He scored you 34 points on the road. I'm not super disappointed in the offense, truth be told.
Go ahead. Sorry. I was just going to say, to your point, Z, on that, before you finish, I'm not blaming Kitley as a whole on the situation. To me, that comes from Maguire saying, let's settle for a 45-yard field goal.
And we don't know that Maguire may have said, hey, let's try to get it. And Kitley said, oh, dude, I've got this great run scheme that we're going to run with our quarterback. We don't know what the conversation was. So I don't want to definitively or authoritatively say that's exactly what happened. We don't know. We get to watch from the TV. So,
but he said it as
Maguire did say, he said we wanted to center it up.
Oh, okay, then perfect. Then that's not on Kitley.
It's like you want to center it up from 46 yards.
Yeah. I will say, Clayton made a great point. As bad as that play was, it's not even like your defense is like 85% culpable for this game getting out of hand. The offense is not nearly as responsible for what happened in this game. The defense is terrible. I don't know why DeRuyter in that unit doesn't get more criticism. You would think that our team scored like 10 points in the game. I think our expectations for our offense are so skewed by the Leaching Kingsbury eras, where our definition of success for a defense is like, can you get me 2 stops a game? And then I will consider you successful.
Yeah,
that is it.
Our defense is clearly the worst unit in the Big 12 by a lot.
Yeah,
and it gets close. Like almost no flat. It's not even close.
Now, how much of that do you put on injuries?
Yeah, sure. I think DeRuyter gets much more of a pass, but before the game started, you get the news that your starting left tackle is going to be out. You're already down your starting left guard. You're playing Sterling Porcher, who is by far the worst offensive player on your team. And he's the worst offensive lineman you've played in the last 3 years, and it's not even close. He can't finish blocks. He can't move. So you're running, you're down 2 starters. You have Sterling out there. You've got your 6-foot right guard, your redshirt sophomore center. Like, they have injuries too. And then Josh Kelly's banged up with his ankle. I mean, you could kind of tell he's not nearly as explosive as he should have been. And then your starting quarterback gets hurt.
Yeah.
True freshman quarterback comes in the game, and you still manage to it blows my mind that Kitley is getting all this hate based on what he turned. And it wasn't a great offensive performance. Let's not, you messed up in several areas, but relatively speaking to the defensive performance, it was significantly better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also, I don't think fans understand, we gave up 2 75-plus yard touchdowns yesterday. I think we have 6 on the year. I don't think fans realize, you give a team 2 free drives, that's a drive they don't have to make, and they score. You're likely not winning that game.
Yep. Schematically, somehow Ben Roberts is guarding Savion Williams out of the backfield. Maybe they did something to where they got that matchup and we were handcuffed by it. He will win that unless he gets the ball behind the line. He is going to route up Ben Roberts every single time. I don't know how that happened.
And that's not a knock on Ben either. He would do that to 98% of linebackers in the Big 12 too, because he's incredible. Yep. I mean, he's a great player. And that's the thing. It's, for me, it's with it looking at offense and defense. Sure, Kitley was not perfect, but your offense has been, statistically light years ahead of the defense. And the fact that the defense was this horrendous again, just like they were last week, it just begs the question of what are you even doing? And Brennan mentioned injuries earlier. I'm sorry, but you may be young. You may have some injuries on your team. You absolutely do, but everyone does at this point. That doesn't give you a pass for being as terrible as you are on that side of the ball. You are embarrassing on that side of the ball, and that's what I think is so frustrating to me. And when you, like Clayton said, when you give up 2 drives like that, it just makes you ask the question, like, what are you even doing? Because they don't have to make those drives, and they get to rest on the sideline after they score those 75-yard plus TDs.
I will say it does put a lot of pressure on Kitley to have to almost call a perfect game and
It's
have
like
the
the
guys
clip
execute
years.
it. Yeah, it is. It is kind of, and that's why I mentioned earlier in the show, like, it's like we're insane. Like, we're expecting a different result and we get the same thing every year. And it's felt like that for a decade. But at the same time, when you create 3 turnovers on the road, I'm okay with that. Like, I think we all said if we gave up less than 40 points, we could probably win the game, and they did that. And yes, the trunk touchdown plays suck, and like the one-on-one coverage with Macho Stevenson, dude just gets burned. He's gone. Tutty, they're right back in the game. Redshirt freshman. Yeah. So like, the reason I have more leniency towards the defense isn't because I think DeRuyter shouldn't be called out. It isn't because I think that certain guys, like the linebacker position this year, I would give like a C-, which we said beginning of the season they were probably your best position group. I just feel like they've done enough in a couple games, like the Washington State game. That wasn't on them. They were put in terrible positions consistently through special teams and offense, and they gave up 37 points. And in this game, they gave up 35 points on the road with 3 turnovers, and you had enough to win the game. Like, sure, they still did not play well, but they did enough. And like, that's all we can ask for from a team that's so depleted on that side of the ball, where I could probably go play defensive tackle. I mean, just because they need a body. It's hard. I don't know how to judge it. I mean, what would you grade them out of 10, Zyler? If 10 being 10, the defense, 10 being their, Georgia.
Oh, they're like a 3 or 4. It's like that. Those defenses are loaded with 5 and 4 stars that are all old guys. You're extremely hurt and you're extremely young. This will be the youngest your defense ever is, probably for the next 10 to 12 years. It would be shocking if you ever fielded a defense this young. And you're out, 3 starters on the defensive line. I don't know if y'all saw, I mean, we're playing walk-ons significant minutes. Like Nathan Tillman is getting out there. Joseph Plunk was playing a significant portion of the second half because we're down to our 3rd and 4th string safeties. They are extremely banged up. That's just kind of how it is. But that secondary right now it's a walking infirmary. The guys are just in and out of the lineup. There's no consistency. It's basically, since Braylon Lux has been back, he's been the only inconsistent one, and he missed 3 or 4 games. They are what they are at this point. You can't. If they get turnovers, or they're going to get scored on. That's pretty much it. I think you force 2 or 3 punts. Everything else with either touchdown or turnover. So
yeah.
Clayton, I completely get what you're saying about like the defense did enough to win, but you can say the exact same thing about the offense. I mean, they put up 34 points, and that's with a missed field goal. Like, if we make that field goal, you could say that about either unit. So
I get it, but so then fine. Tell me where the blame falls. Then, if I'm stuck in between, where do I put it?
I think, for me, there's plenty of blame to go around. I think Kitley deserves some blame. He had some bad calls situationally. Hammond deserves some blame for the fumble. Burkhart for the missed field goal, and the defense for giving up. Also, the offense gave them a 17-point lead. You had to get probably 1 stop in the 4th quarter. You couldn't do it.
Yeah, they get 1 stop.
Yeah,
and it's or just don't even give up a 75-yard touchdown drive. And when you get you can just get the ball back and run the clock out if that drive takes 5 minutes.
Yeah. No, all fair. Conrad, final thoughts on the defense?
Yeah, they're, like I said earlier, they're terrible, and I don't know when you've had a defense this bad. Maybe since David Gibbs. It might be
dude,
then.
The Gibbs defenses were historic. These are not that bad, and that's saying something.
Sure, they may not statistically be, but they certainly do feel that way. because you couldn't get one stop in the fourth quarter. I mean, you couldn't do anything. And I know you're hurt, but that's not a very good, in my opinion. That TCU team lost to Houston. I mean, they're not a very good team. I know their quarterback's not terrible, but every quarterback looks great against you. So it's frustrating. I think there's enough blame to go around, but we could spend forever talking about it. But I think this team needs to take a look in the mirror and see who they really are, because you've got 4 games left, and you better find a way to win 2 of them. Because if you don't, I think you've got some pretty serious questions to answer.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get into a question that we're seeing online as well too. Is how do you evaluate Joey Maguire 34 games in? This, I saw a tweet, and I completely disagree with this, but Matt Wells was 5-2, had a home game against Kansas State, blew it, could have been 6-2 and lost. And I think it was, I can't remember who, but it's like Joey's a more charismatic Matt Wells. True or false?
I would lose all respect for somebody that said that to my face. Just say, like, you don't know ball.
Dude, Matt Wells is part of the reason we're in the situation we are right now.
Imagine you were building a program and you
agree.
chose to take one high school offensive lineman every single year, and we're somehow going to field a competent unit. That's the results that we're seeing right now, is because of that.
Conrad?
Yeah, I'll say
Conrad
this,
the one
man.
that said it?
No, I was not the one. I was not the one that said that.
Let me pull it up real quick. Actually, I have the
someone,
screen grabs.
I said someone. I said no. I did not say that. For the record, it's 2 different people, but the results they're not the same. But I think after people lose games like that, they say kind of outlandish things. I've definitely said something like that. I know Clayton has, Brennan has. Zyler may be the only Red Raider on the face of the planet that doesn't say outlandish things after we lose.
It's not true.
Joey
I said some horrible things when we lost to Wyoming.
Well, that's true. We can pull up those receipts. No, we won't do that. It's hard because Joey we've said it a million times. He has risen the floor for your program. He's so likable. No one wants that guy to fail. No one wants him to fail. It's just when you have these seemingly 2 personas of him, of we're going to be aggressive, we're going to play to win in the first 2 years, more in year 1 than year 2, and then you play this year not to lose. I just think you have some really big questions about him that you've got to answer. I think he's recruited well up until this year. I think the players love him, that play hard for him, unless it's at the end of the game. But he's a good coach. I really do have to see how we finish the season, and if we finish well, then we can talk about what this season really looked like. But for me, I think the biggest question is, why are you doing what you're doing in year 3? You're allowing 59 points to Baylor, a terrible football team, off a bye. You're coming to TCU, you're up 17 points in the second half. You're losing that game. You're letting back into the game Arizona, Cincinnati, Arizona State. You almost lose to ACU. And that's his 3rd year. I get it, the recruiting, the young, I understand that. But this is the 3rd year of relatively, except for Clay Maguire, maybe pretty much the same staff. The fact that those things are happening for me in year 3 do cause me to raise my eyebrows a little bit and say, what are you? Why aren't we making any type of progress in that way? That would just be my thoughts, my questions that I'd like to see answered, because I do think they're valid based on what we've seen the last 2 weeks.
Can I say something? This is going to go to what Conrad said, because I think I agree with most of what you said. Did y'all see there was a particular Twitter account that posted all of these questions that got into a spat with Don Williams? Did y'all see that?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
We may have opinions on this. Those questions coming from a media member would be absolutely insane. I know that those are questions people want to answer to, but if you ask that, what do you actually expect your head coach to get up there and say? Like, Coach, does your team lack a killer instinct, and are you struggling to develop your team? Like, and that's coming from a fat 65-year-old white man. Like, he's not. What are you hoping to get out of that? That really bothered me. That was something Conrad said, like, spurred that in my mind, and I was like, that was an insane thing. Y'all may have different thoughts on that, and I'm open to hear that. But that was ridiculous.
There's a couple ways to look at this, in my opinion. One, you could look at what he was left. Like, I think we forget how awful the Matt Wells era truly was for the program. It was devastating. And even to go farther back, Cliff Kingsbury was not a good recruiter. Cliff, from 2016 on, there wasn't a whole lot of talent on that side, on either side of the ball. So Joey had to come in here and flip this program in terms of belief. And I think he did that. And what he did the first year, granted,
absolutely.
they were extremely close games, but, you beat Texas, you beat OU, you kill West Virginia at home. You have some decent games. You go 8-5. Everyone's excited. I just feel like it kind of maybe made us think, okay, we are now going to take off, and we're just not there yet. And we kind of take 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We have injuries. There isn't a solid enough roster completely to fill in when those injuries happen. You're just kind of stuck playing walk-ons and what you got. But at the same time, you're like, man, like there are some puzzling coaching decisions too. Like this guy's never been a head coach before. Is he just having to learn on the fly? Is he going to make mistakes and get better? I don't know, Clayton. I mean, it's just like, dude, it makes me so tired. It just makes me tired.
Yeah. I'm not too upset with Joey at this point. I do wish that this year we had seen like another step forward in the program. And I definitely have questions about his in-game management, especially with a lead, because that's come up pretty much every game this year. Every win, we've had a 2-score lead, and we let them get down, and we've lost. Now, I guess it's the first one we lost, but we let the teams back in it. But honestly, I think that Joey would be way more endeared to the fans if he would just stop losing non-conference games. Because, I mean, we've been 5-4 in both of the previous years, and we're tracking for another winning season this year. But he lost to NC State, he lost to Wyoming, Oregon, Washington State. Like, I think his tenure as Texas Tech head coach would be looked at far more favorably if he would just go 3-0 in the non-conference every year.
And he's suffering from like 10 years of bent up fan aggression. So he catches all this flack that's like not necessarily because of him. It's like 10 years of kind of dealing with these sort of situations. Really more blowouts than close wins in a lot of years. But there's a lot of pent up aggression in our fan base looking for something to succeed. And there's a lot of passion in the fan base, which I think is great. That's something I love about Tech fans. I'm in group chats with Baylor and TCU fans, and they are just not as engaged with their team. I know it's anecdotal, but they just do not care as much as Tech fans do. I feel very confident in saying that. And so I do love that about Tech fans. I love that we're passionate about it. Maybe we don't always engage with it in the most intellectual way, but you choose to engage in football in the way that you choose. And I'm not going to knock anybody for that, even if I may disagree with you. I do appreciate that our fans have passion and that they show up and that they care about the outcome on the field.
Well, and that's why we're here, Z, right? That's why we started the show, because we care about it and we're obsessed and we want to talk about it. Conrad, I'll go to you on Clayton's point, and it'd be interesting to get all of y'all's thoughts, but why does this team have such a hard time finishing games? I mean, Clayton, to your point, even in the games that you've won, we talk about being 4-1 now in 1-score games. You were up 2 scores. Is it just the youth of the football team? Is it coaching? Is it management from Joey? What do we think it is?
Yeah, I think it's coaching. I think it's youth. I think it's management. I think it's a myriad of things. But the reality is, when you get a lead and you see the clock ticking down, you think, well, I think I'm going to win this game. You just naturally, seemingly don't try as hard, don't play as hard. I think that's just psychologically what happens. If you tell me, hey, you're going to get paid $1 million on Friday, I'm probably not going to work that hard this week. That's just kind of how it works, right? Psychologically in anything. And so I think that's probably a lot of it, but that's where great teams overcome that. And great coaches seem to motivate their players to play all 4 quarters, all 60 minutes, and make sure they finish. So I don't know why, but that definitely is concerning, because that's something good teams do, and they do really well.
Z?
Yeah, I think Maguire would love, when he gets on a 2-score lead in the second half, I think philosophically and theoretically, he would love for us to be able to do a 9-minute, 14-play touchdown drive that burns 10 minutes off the clock. I think he wants our team to be able to do that, and he believes he should be able to do that with Tahj and what he has. And I just don't think that your offensive line is capable of doing that right now. I love that idea too. I would love if we could do that. If you were able to do one of those drives this past Saturday, you win the game. You're just not equipped to do that. And I think they really are saying we should be able to do this with Tahj. And with the other backs that you have in the backfield, Jacoby showed a lot of juice. I think he deserves to play a little bit more. And I just don't think your team is built to do that. That's unfortunate because it'd be great if you were. I just don't know that your team has shown the ability to do that. And that's now, 4 instances of this. And I think they probably realize it now, especially after it finally burned them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I mean, you kind of have to develop a killer instinct as a program. That takes going through trials, kind of being together for a while, which is going to be harder to do in the NIL. But I think what we saw in the field at one point, you had Hammond, Hudson, and Jacoby Williams all in the field at one time. And it's like, man, all 3 of those guys have made plays this year for you at some point that you are very excited about moving forward. And when we had CJ Baskerville on a couple weeks ago, and shout out to CJ for having one of those interceptions yesterday, he talked about Will Hammond. And he was like, we saw him in camp, and that dude was shredding us. And he had said if Behren were to go down for whatever reason, no one on that team would be worried. They were fully confident that Will could come in. And it was great to see Will do that. And I don't want to spend too much time on, Will specifically this episode. There's so much more to get into. But what were our thoughts, just the excitement level of seeing what Will could do as a true freshman?
Yeah, I thought he played a really good game. I mean, you're not going to knock him. EPA per play, he was easily the best quarterback in the game. Granted, he only gets to play a half. To temper some of the excitement. Actually, let me start with the bad stuff, and then we'll go into the good. He had that screen pass attempt to Coy that should have been a pick 6. I don't want to forget that. Also, his mishandling of that play with Tahj, where you go from 1st and 10 to 2nd and 17, that also very easily could have cost you the game. And then obviously his fumble. So he had some mistakes, but for a true freshman to come in there and absolutely dice up some, tricky schemes and some tricky pass rushes, they were throwing some stuff at him, and he was, stepping up and making plays. He had that really huge 4th down run. He did a lot of really good things. You're excited for him. He clearly showed that he has it. I'm not going to get too excited because I've seen a freshman quarterback come in for an injured QB on the road and play really well, and then maybe that doesn't always lead to future success, a la Behren Morton, which, man, what a bummer for that guy. He's stuck it out with the program. He easily could have transferred. He's fought through a ton of injuries. He's led his team. They're 5-2. They're leading on the road, and then he injures himself sliding. Like, that is just a humongous bummer. I hope his season's not over. That dude's an awesome Red Raider, and I hope he's better. But will look great. That's kind of my thoughts there.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, there's a lot to be excited about. His throw to Coy in the back of the end zone was one of the best throws that anyone's made for us this season. Also, the back shoulder to Caleb Douglas to already have that timing down as a freshman who hasn't really played this year is also impressive. And yeah, I'd echo everything you said about Behren. That really sucks that he's hurt again for the 3rd straight year. So definitely feel for him and hope he can come back this year.
Yeah, I think Will's a dude. I think, in a road game, seeing what you saw, he was not perfect, as Zyler mentioned, but he definitely showed that he's not a normal true freshman. He's not a normal 18-year-old quarterback. Even in warm-ups, he's standing behind when Behren's going and he's working through the progressions. I mean, the kid is different. We've also heard from some other sources, all he wants to do is play ball. That's all he cares about. And when a guy cares about ball that much and he's going to be playing the most important position on the field for you, that's just a good omen. And I think all of what you saw on Saturday, even with the mistakes, shows you that he's a dude and he's going to be really good for you. And all he wants to do is just be the best possible player for Texas Tech that he can be. So it was really beneficial, or was really encouraged by seeing him. And I'm higher than Behren on than most people are. 17 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. I couldn't have asked for more than that for him this year. So I'm not mad at Behren at all. I still believe that Behren can be a good player, and I think he is a good player. My only caveat to that would be my eyes popping at Will is not. It has nothing to do with Behren. It has everything to do with Will and how well he played and how ready he looked. So I was really impressed by Will. Feel for Behren. Hope he can play. But if he can't, I also feel really good about the direction of your offense and your quarterback position as a whole.
Yeah, it seems like the Tech quarterback luck just cannot find any way to break this curse, and it's if Behren does miss time, and God bless him, hope he gets healthy, you feel comfortable, but the reality is the kid's still a true freshman. He's going to make mistakes.
Sure.
He has a lot of talent, but at that point, your season's kind of taken can we find a way to win, one of those home games and just kind of build for the future. With Behren, you had a lot of high hopes, and hopefully it's not a season-ending injury. But if it is, I think it'll be great experience. And so with that, we are going to move into a question, part of a segment we're going to do after some Tech losses because it's more fun to do this. But let's overreact. And I've got one question for each of you. Zyler, I'm going to start with you, and then Clayton, I'll go to you, and then Conrad. Zyler, first question: overreaction or reality? Texas Tech will miss a bowl game this year.
Massive overreaction. You're going to be favored at home against West Virginia. You'll be a maybe 4 to 5 point dog to Oklahoma State on the road. You'll probably be a 3 point dog to Colorado at home, and we won't talk about the next game. I don't think you're going to win that one, but you've got 3 realistic opportunities to get a win. I'll be shocked if you don't get at least one of them.
Fair enough. Okay, Clay. Fair enough, man. Hey, great analysis.
Agreed.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree with you completely. Clay, Will Hammond will be your starting quarterback at the beginning of next season.
Oh, that's a tough question. That's definitely tougher than the bowl game one.
Clayton, here's a 95-mile-an-hour curveball after I lobbed the softball to Zyler.
I don't think that's a huge overreaction. I mean, that's so tough. If Behren is out for the year and Will Hammond comes in and plays really well, then I probably see Behren just transferring at the end of the year. But if Behren comes back, plays well, leads you to a couple more wins, I don't see them pushing Behren out next year or Behren transferring on his own. So I'll say slight overreaction, maybe. That's kind of a cop-out answer, but
yeah, that's not what we're looking for. But I'll give it to you. It's the first time doing it, so I'll allow it this time. It's Conrad, to your point, it actually is 18 touchdowns, not 3, just to fact check you there. But Behren having 18
CNN.
touchdowns. Yeah, hey, sorry, it's election season. You're like, man, he hasn't done anything to lose the job. So Will would just have to go cook him in summer if Will is your starting quarterback next August. I still feel like this is Behren's team. I think he's earned the right for it to be his team. And he's not the reason you're 5-3 this year. But I also at the same time don't think you can say that if Behren was healthy in that game, you would have won, because Will did everything. And in fact, he probably played, just as well as Behren could. I mean, Will didn't do anything poorly to get you up 31-14. So, we'll see what happens. All right, Conrad, DeRuyter, overreaction or reality? DeRuyter should be fired at the end of the season.
Man, you just got progressively harder with your questions. From the softball with Zyler to the curveball, 95 mile an hour with Clayton, to 102 mile an hour fastball right in the upper inside corner. This is difficult because there's still 4 games left. So I will say reality if your defense continues to look as poor as it does. If you are still 121st in the country in points allowed in the fourth quarter, if you are still 126th in total defense, if you still cannot stop anyone in terms of the yards per play, there are only 2 teams worse than you in the country in allowing more yards per play than you do, then absolutely he should be fired, and we should go get somebody better. But if you improve, then obviously I think there's room to have a conversation because you are so young. But if the trend continues downward, I absolutely think he should be gone. I don't really care about the first 2 years at this point, because this year's this year, and what you did last year matters a little bit, but not as much. So if it continues the way that it is right now, I think it's definitely a reality.
Yeah, and that's probably fair. And I'll make sure next week. By the way, this is only if we lose. We're not going to overreact to a win. We're going to bask in a win. So next week after Iowa State, during our overreaction segment, I'll make sure to give Z a tough one for sure.
Dude, speaking of, man, true freshman on the road going to a top 10 ranked Iowa State. That is not an ideal situation if that is who you're truly going to be trotting out there.
Yeah,
tough for Hammond.
We'll get the
injury. Could be our Noah Fafita.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
We did that last year.
But if we win that, let me just say an if real quick, because
It's not
still.
happening.
I'm just gonna say if you win that, if you trot out Will Hammond and you win that game, I can maybe guess that a lot more babies in Lubbock, Texas next year will be named Will, because that would be a feat for the ages against this Iowa State team.
And the Kool-Aid factory will be backing up and running. And if you've listened to us and you're a loyal listener and you're wondering where the Kool-Aid factory is, we've suspended it for the time being.
Yeah.
We're taking a week off. We sent everyone home. Dylan, Ryan, anyone else that's applied, we're holding off on applications. Doors are locked for the week. So don't worry about it. Conrad will have an update for us still come on Wednesday, but today we will just leave it at that. So, all right, guys. Well, that's fun. Let's move right through where we were right, where we were wrong predictions. I'll go through this super quick. I had TCU winning 48-24. I was a little off, but nonetheless had TCU winning. Clayton had TCU winning 41-30. Z had TCU winning 45-31. And then Conrad, the lone Texas Tech pick'em, had Tech winning 31-28. So Conrad, you, my friend, are the lone loser of the week. You could say we were all wrong for the outcome of the score. All of us had TCU scoring over 40. They didn't, but nonetheless, we still had the Horned Frogs with the win. So Conrad, how does it feel?
Yeah, I think there are actually a lot more losers on the week than just me. I could start naming names for the Texas Tech football team and coaching staff, but we'll spare them the pain of that. So yeah, I was wrong, but I'm the Kool-Aid hype man. I have to be positive when I can be, but I can tell you all a little spoiler alert for Wednesday. I will not be picking Texas Tech to win on Saturday. I will be picking us to win by lose by double digits. So that side of me maybe behind me, but it could come back. But you never know when. You got to give me a reason for it. So yeah,
I really thought you were about to say that you were not going to pick us to win. You were going to pick us to crush Iowa State.
No, I'm not that
to
delusional.
bury them, to shut them out.
I'm not that delusional. I'm not that delusional.
Well, we'll see, Kool-Aid man. I still believe that we've got some flavors coming up, and it's not totally closed for the season. So we'll see, and so we'll get to that on Thursday's episode. So some news and notes from around the Big 12. BYU remained unbeaten. They walloped UCF on the road. So the Storm and Mormons are continuing. They're 8-0. Still in first place. Then Colorado beat Cincy at home. They have a bye, and so Colorado's next game will be in Lubbock, November 9th. So we will be ready for that. They'll be coming in with one Big 12 loss. K-State got lucky, found a way to beat Kansas at home. Kansas honestly should have won that game. Jalen Daniels proved Clayton to be correct, that he's probably the worst quarterback in the conference, and that Kansas is a poverty program. Iowa State, in case you're wondering, and we're curious where they were this weekend. They had a bye, so they also remain undefeated, and they look forward to us coming in to Ames on Saturday, and that will be wonderful for us. And that's what we have to look forward to next week. Ames 2:30 at Iowa State. Some questions. What will the health of your team look like? I'm really nervous to see the injury report. Any expectation, anything we've heard, guys? I mean, what's the percentage of Behren playing? Any guys that, I know it's still really early in the week, but like Z, if you had to kind of guess, like, is Will Hammond starting on Saturday?
I'd say there's like an 85% chance he's starting. They said it was like sore to the touch. I don't know anything about medical stuff, but he was immediately rolled out, had a sling. I mean, if it's a broken collarbone, you're done for the year. So
I feel like we would know by now if it was broken, right?
That's what I thought too, but you never know with college, like medical stuff. Sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
It's just weird. You just never know.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Buchanan, thank you for that update, though.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens there, but look forward to that. We'll still all be here. We're all insane. Like I said, we're gonna be watching the game at 2:30. Still hopeful that if we beat Iowa State, we could still go get Colorado, and then you get Oklahoma State, and then you get West Virginia, and you finish 9-3, 2 losses of the conference. And you're playing in Arlington. Someone still buys it. I don't know who, but they're not on this podcast. I can tell you that for sure. All right. Well, let's get to our Tommy Tubervilles of the week. We like to close our Monday shows with our fraudulent Tommy Tubervilles of the week. Conrad, I'll go to you first. Who is your Tommy Tuberville of the week?
My Tommy Tuberville of the week is an individual that I think you all know who he is, even our listeners as well. He was 35 of 64 321 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. 3 of those were pick sixes. He used to play for Ohio State. He was told to leave. He now plays for Syracuse. Kyle McCord, you are my Tommy Tuberville of the week. 3 pick sixes in one half. You did throw 3 touchdowns. It was just to the other team. I didn't see the highlights. I just saw the stat line, and man, that's rough. You are my Tommy Tuberville of the week.
Yeah, sad day for Kyle McCord. That's just tough. I've never seen a stat line like that. I can't say
No, it's
I've
terrible.
never seen a stat line like that. All right, Zyler, who is your Tommy Tuberville of the week?
Yeah, mine is going to stay in conference. Mine is Brennan. I think Clayton and I both agreed. We were a little worried about the Arizona team coming into the year. Some of the things that he was saying kind of raised some red flags. They are already looking at potentially firing him. They've talked about the buyouts. Their fans are going nuts. Like, they want this guy out immediately. He had a quote that I wanted to read. Let me see what he said. He thinks that Arizona has a chance to be a good football team, but they're not ready to prove it yet. I hope that he figures out when they're ready to reveal that they're going to be a good football team, because the season is quickly wrapping up. That's just a if thankfully Joey is so frustrated after he loses that he doesn't say any bullcrap like that. Like, maybe he says dumb things about why he did what he did, but he hasn't made the tailgating comment like Neil Brown did or whatever Brent Brennan did. But my Tommy Tuberville of the week is Brent Brennan, head coach of the Arizona Wildcats. I failed to mention that.
That is so funny. Oh man, Clayton, who is your Tommy Tuberville of the week?
Yeah, well, luckily, if there's any school that can afford a head coach buyout, it's the University of Arizona. So, but my Tommy Tuberville of the week is also in conference. It's Lance Leipold, Jalen Daniels, and the entire Kansas football team. They have led in the fourth quarter of all but one of their games. In the one game that they didn't, they led with 2 minutes left in the third quarter, and they are 2-6 and 1-4 in conference. Jalen Daniels legitimately ran one of the worst 2-minute drives I've ever seen. The defense ran the same play 3 times in a row where the safety would come down to the line of scrimmage right before the snap, and it was like he was trying to time it up to give the safety a head start to run right through his line. Got sacked 3 times in a row. I've genuinely never seen anything like it. So congratulations to Kansas football. You're my Tommy Tuberville of the week.
Yeah, we could be Kansas, right? I mean,
it could always be worse.
It could always be worse. It could always be worse. That game was tough to watch last night. Well, I'm going to stay in conference as well, guys. Conrad likes to make fun of me for my love of Cam Rising. Cam, I keep recovering, buddy. You'll get better soon. But Utah football is my Tommy Tuberville of the week. They're on a 4-game losing streak. They lost to Houston this week on the road, and the most points they scored in the last 4 weeks is 19. So it's tough. There's some tough sledding for some Big 12 programs. You could be Utah, you could be Oklahoma State, and you could be Kansas, but I'm going to pick Utah this week. Your pick to win the conference, just because your quarterback goes out, you look like a JV team, and that's just a tough season. And their fans suck. They talk so much crap. I love to see it. We get to play Utah next year, so hopefully we'll be able to beat them. But for now, Utah Utes, you are my Tommy Tuberville of the week. So
shout out to former Tommy Tuberville of the week Twitter user Patton_Matt.
Yes, Utah legend, right? Utah legend.
Yes.
All right, Z, do you have a trivia question for us as we close out the show?
Yeah, it's give me 1 second. I had it pulled up and I may have lost it. That may be a huge bummer. No, found it. Okay, so this is going to be a semi-depressing stat, but it was a national account that was tweeting about a kind of football oddity. New Mexico put up 453 total yards versus Colorado State and scored only 6 points. That is the first time it's been done this season. The next lowest team that has scored and had at least 453 yards, do you know what the lowest total points that has been scored, and it relates to Texas Tech. So I'm wondering if you could guess the amount of points we scored this season with putting up 453 yards.
The lowest amount of points you scored?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say 16 against Washington State.
Yeah, it had to
I
be
would
that.
say that too, because Behren threw for like 350 that game.
Yep, you are correct. We scored 16 on 453 yards. That's a really, really fun stat to be included in. I was happy to see our name in the national media members' mouth.
Hey,
the depression continues.
Hey, any publicity is good publicity. Or what is it? What's the saying, Mr. Politician Conrad? I don't know.
You got it right. You nailed it.
Okay. Or bad publicity is good publicity. I
I
don't
don't
know.
think that's
No,
how the saying goes.
I don't think that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I don't know what it is. I thought
Nobody's
JD
listening
Vance
this
would know.
far anyway.
No,
so.
it's, yeah, we went over an hour for the first time in our history. So, well, boys, that was a lot of fun nonetheless. Tough loss, but we are going to be back here on Thursday to go through an Iowa State preview. And we also have a special episode coming out this week as well that will drop with some basketball content. So looking forward to getting that to you guys. Follow us on the Broadway Shuffle at the Broadway Shuffle, a Texas Tech Sports Podcast, and you can make sure to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel, the Broadway Shuffle, a Texas Tech Sports Podcast. So for Conrad, Zyler, and Clayton, I'm Brennan. We'll see y'all on Thursday, and Recom Tech, baby.